That's right, a person who commits as many crimes as Miss True here. In total, nearly 100 death sentences are certain. How is it? Your life is being threatened. You have to think about it. Professor Strong and Du have confirmed that each time you die is enough to pay for your sins. What should I say? I wish you 2 victories. Immediately get her out of my sight. It's a waste of resources in her heart. She screams, wait, I don't want to die yet, don't hand me over to the police, I still want to live, I want to live. That's right, what does volunteer mean? I agree to be a volunteer. I agree to be a volunteer. Mr. Lee heard this and turned back to look at Miss True. I don't want to force you to decide, not at all. It's voluntary, it's voluntary. I like people who know the times, then continue enjoying your breath. She dared not say anything. Mr. Lee called to mock, you follow me when we return to the club. Mr. Lee praised her, I have to admit that you did very well this time. Thank you for your praise, sir. As I said, I will prove my strength to you. Bang Hao has recruited an interesting person. She continued to beg the gentleman, please sir, please implement it and accept me as your time trustee, these are things she deserves. Mr. Lee reached out his hand and used his ability to lift her into the air and used time to wrap around her. Then a giant gold watch appeared. Tick-tock, tick-tock, her body transformed painfully and screamed out loud. After a while, it was over. Mr. Lee said, congratulations on your appointment. After transforming, she knelt on the ground and breathed a sigh of relief. The trustee agreement has been reached, there will be some disagreements temporarily. Is this the power of Sir? I can feel time, she said and then continued, where do you want to go? She replied, go somewhere where martial arts can develop more. That's what he meant. Looking at him in the evening at the club, Old Hao was talking with someone, it's been years since we met, why have you become like this? Where's the genius boy I saw? He looks really ugly. The other person spoke up, do you still remember my son? Of course, his talent is much higher than yours. This idle person sorrowfully said, he wants to leave me? Why is that? Since he was born from his mother's womb, he has had a genetic disease. I have used countless ways to save him, but just like when I calculated my wife's life before my knowledge became useless. I have become nothing more than a failure. Lai Van, cheer up. Now I am working for someone called Time Merchant named Mr. Lee for a project of a great plan. The plan is to create a new world and your gene organization plan is requested by Mr. Lee. Perhaps this gentleman can't cure your son's genetic disease, but he can give your son enough time. With time, everything can be solved, right? Join us, let's build the world together. This is salvation for mankind and can lead to the development of civilization. He questioned, can this Mr. Lee give my son a lot of time? Old Hao replied, enough for you to find the best treatment for the boy. Mr. Lee can create new life and even save death. Now my son is in critical condition, I absolutely cannot leave him alone to go. If he really asks me to join like this, then first take my son away. I don't believe in your words alone. Then, Old Hao told Mr. Lee about it. So, the condition for Professor Lai Van to join our club is that we need to save his son, right? Yes, that's right. Lai Van is a young man who has not yet reached 30 but has been famous many times. He holds an important position in the project team, arranging the gene order of 1.5 million species worldwide. It cannot be denied that this friend of yours is very ambitious, he himself is hard to keep, yet he still wants to be famous. But is his son really that powerful? Mr. Lee called Bang Hao in. Bang Hao immediately appeared. Mr. Lee asked, how has your team been doing recently? Very good, sir, they are all very eager. After 8 years of acceleration, the combat power of the unit can reach the level of special forces. Now everyone is very eager to fight and wants to quickly take on tasks to test their mettle. But I feel there is still a big problem. A big problem? They completely lack the calmness of Professor Chuang Hu. These raw eggs and melons cannot match the soldiers who have been rolling with swords on the battlefield for many years. Mr. Lee thought, not enough combat experience? Then you said I was completely surprised at your overall situation. You are becoming more and more like a veteran soldier, Bang Hao. If I let them accelerate by 2 times for a long time, can it make up for the lack of combat experience? But combat experience is not like recovering body memory, perhaps only continuous task execution can make up for it. Oh dear, it's really headache-inducing, Bang Hao. I have a task for you guys. Yes sir, just say it. This task is to bring back an important talent and at the same time bring back all his research's confidential documents and information. The orientation students this time are not the same, they are all toys and a good opportunity to accumulate experience, right? Bang Hao smirked and said, Sir, if you assign it, it will be completed. At a private hospital in Country A, there was a man in a blue coat eavesdropping on a conversation between a father and son. Lai Van Ba, when can you finally leave this place? It's so boring here. They even took away your handheld device. Son, relax a bit. Wait until you're better, then I'll buy you a new set. Your device was a limited edition, there's no replacement for it, unless I buy you something better like a PS5. Okay, definitely. The son turned his face away, pretending to be obedient, but he knew his father was lying. The door opened, it was the man who had been eavesdropping on their conversation. He spoke up. Handsome boy, you should rest. It's time for your medical examination. Sir, happy times always pass quickly, don't they? It's time to face reality. Alright then. See you tomorrow, son. Goodbye, Dad. After that, Lai Van left the patient room and went to the parking lot. He got into his car, bowed his head down and cursed these creatures under his breath. Then he saw someone approaching him. Mr. Lai Van, hello. We are subordinates of the time merchant, Mr. Lee. We were ordered to escort your son. Hearing this, he thought to himself, the servant is too young. Someone is threatening him with his son. He doesn't trust Mr. Lee's people very much, but he still opened his mouth and said, Listen, I trust you guys very much, but that old man's boss is not easy to deal with either. Understand? Relying on you too, I am really stupid to advise you two to leave. Before he could finish speaking, the two had disappeared. He was stunned and asked, Where did they go? At this point, they were already in the car and asked him from their seats, So do you want to do it or not? He didn't understand what was happening. When did they get in the car? Then he remembered right. The servant had mentioned that Mr. Lee was a time merchant. So he turned around and said, The servant has already said everything. Mr. Lee can give my son a lot of time. The two of them were about to scream out loud and say, Hey! You really talk too much. If you don't want to do it, then we'll leave. But you have to compensate for the first-class airfare, big brother. The other person is calmer. We came to discuss a bit about the plan. After all, time is extremely precious. Later, you will receive a fake Gmail. You can use it to get your son away from the stalkers. We will pretend to be the bodyguards you hired to protect the child. From there, we will take him out. Although the opponent does not have high skills, they are all expensive to train. So it's best not to cause trouble. Then, the old man visited his son. But he was always noticed by those in blue coats. At this time, there was a voice behind him calling his name. Mr. Lai Van, I thought you had finished work. He explained, I suddenly received a Gmail from a friend saying that a hospital in Country G has a treatment method for my son. I want to immediately discharge that boy. Looking at him leaving, he put his hand to his ear to contact his superior. You heard that, didn't you? What should we do? Should we apply strong tactics? The person on the other end of the line said, who started to be restless. Country G, huh? A small unimportant country, as long as Lai Van is under my control, it's fine. I want to see what tricks he can pull. At this time, he had led the two into the room with his son. His son was surprised and said, "Country G? Am I going alone? Dad, do you want me to go with them to Country G?" He replied, "Perhaps there really is a cure for you there. We can't miss this opportunity, right? These two people will ensure your safety on the way." At this time outside there was the sound of opening the door. "It's the doctor from earlier coming in. Good news here, Mr. Lai Van, we have confirmed the authenticity of the Gmail. You can safely send the kid away." "That's good," he turned and asked, "but who are these two?" He spoke up and answered, "They are bodyguards I hired to escort the boy. I think I have the right to hire my own people to protect my son, right? Oh no, don't misunderstand me. Of course that's your freedom. It's just that maybe I need to report a bit to my boss." At this point, one of Mr. Lee's guys spoke up, "Let me say something here. This gentleman must have spent a lot of money. I don't want to lose this order. And besides, our house is always on time. If due to some unclear external reasons which lead to passengers missing their flight, my boss won't be happy. By the way, my boss's time is super expensive." Even old Lai Van was surprised at their way of speaking. "Oh no sir. I think you misunderstood me. You know this is a free country, we can't overstep our bounds and interfere with others' personal choices, right? What I meant was that we would send a separate car to take you guys to the airport." The hot-tempered guy also spoke up, "I think this is great. The cars here in GA are too light, the brakes are too strong, I'm not used to driving them. So okay then. I'll go do the paperwork." "That's great." Done, he left. After stepping out of the room, he started talking to his superior. "What should we do?" He said, "This little devil Tai is our pawn against old man Lai Van. A toy like this pawn must be firmly held in our own hands. However, if someone wants to snatch it, they have to die." When the two of them and the kid got to the car, the doctor said to Lai Van, "The big rock in your heart has finally fallen, hasn't it? It seems that we won't be able to meet for a while, Mr. Lai Van. Are you sure they will take better care of him than us?" But seeing Lai Van's serious face, he quickly put out the fire. "I'm just kidding, colleague. Look at your expression." The people in the car were ready to go and reported, "We can go now, so I'll leave too. I still have some work to deal with. Goodbye." The car started running across the deserted field. Mr. Lee's man spoke up, "When we got here, I didn't remember there was a place like this near the airport. It seems to have been abandoned for a long time." Then, the four people from both sides looked at each other affectionately. The car stopped abruptly and then came to a complete stop. Looking at the car, it was certain that a shocking fight had taken place inside. And of course, those little brats dared to compete with Mr. Lee's buff time power. Then they reported that the boy was safe and continued their operation. Later, they threw these two blue shirts into a hole. In your next life, don't hide guns in your coat, it's too obvious, teased the guy next to him. Where would you hide it if you were you? Hide it in a squirrel. Look at the faces of these two arguing guys. Getting in the car, they said to each other, "Send a message to White Hand, is he okay or not? I see his inner talent is too fierce. Stop talking nonsense and act according to plan." The scene shifted to old man Lai Van's place. He received a message and knew right away it was from player Robert by looking at the avatar. The content of the message was that the person was very safe and ready to fly. He was very happy when he saw this message. "Alright, next is my turn." He approached the door and scanned his fingerprint. He thought about player Robert's advice. "Mr. Lai Van, this little thing is a golden finger. Just plug it into the internal terminal system of the Institute and finish studying it. You don't need to do anything else." The door opened and he walked into the system room holding up his USB stick thinking, just plug it in and that's it, right? As he was fumbling around not knowing if he had plugged it in correctly or not, the door opened and it was the blue shirt from the hospital earlier. There were 2 more security guards pointing their guns at him demanding him to raise his hands up while that blue shirt said, "I didn't expect us to meet again so soon, Mr. Li Van." Then, someone pushed him down and pointed a gun at his head. The blue shirt continued, "Do you really think your young people, students, and guards will help you escape from here? In fact, our methods are extraordinary. Now the evidence is extremely authentic. We will carry out strict surveillance on you 24 hours a day, the highest level of surveillance." The guard took the USB and threw it to the blue shirt. "Next time you want to steal something, you better find a more professional team." At this moment, the room suddenly lost power, then a voice came from the speaker, "You thought that pulling out would be okay? This is really... I spent all night making it. Don't underestimate people. In the future, if you want to prevent theft, you better find a more professional teammate. And have professional equipment." This voice is from player Robert. Who else could it be? You have successfully hacked the system. Those people were panicking. Who is this person talking in the broadcast room? Impossible. Now all your organization's things, not missing a bit, are in front of me. So I won't be polite anymore. The blue shirt panicked and ordered the guards to quickly take this person away. It's too late. Those 3 guys were instantly knocked out. What happened? Old man Li Van was stunned for 5 seconds. At this moment Robert announced the completion of the mission. Because our people are still in a strange state, next go to the hospital to stabilize the state. All this headquarters has been dealt with. Your next mission is to go to heaven with your son. He shed tears because he finally escaped from them. He said, "God, why? It's been a month already. Time really is something that easily wears out, isn't it, mister? How much longer do you want? Those 2 fathers and sons here are still adaptable, right? It seems okay. They rarely feel the off-season climate of life. We also think it's a relief for them. Finally it's my turn. The key experimental rooms of Country X, Plant Ecology Experimental Room, Animal Ecology Experimental Room, Gene Coding Experimental Room, Cell Biology Experimental Room and so on have all been completed one after another. And the famous historian, creator of human history, Mr. Yuya disappeared, mathematician from Country G Gloria disappeared, cell biologist from Country Y Heyman disappeared, microbiologist Peter Smile from Country F disappeared, Professor Biaro from the group of experts researching life gene projects from Country M disappeared. Mr. Lee laughed and said that flowers are blooming everywhere now, which is great. Now there are not a few organizations in the world investigating us, right? That's right, there are many. This time we invited many experts even from some top organizations. Pulling teeth from a tiger's mouth, they must be in a hurry to catch up with time. The committee that created the #1 miniature world has set up a secret group, taking advantage of every minute and second to transport. It's undeniable, only the effectiveness of his team is so high that it astonishes others. Although this time we step out of the darkness into the light, they want to find out our internal situation. It's not easy. Unexpectedly, she reminded me to be careful before. Now that things have progressed to this point, the focus of the Longevity Club is no longer something that organizations and agencies can resist. Instead of worrying about others coming to find scraps, it's better to pay more attention to development, creating a new world. But I feel she is too confident. At this moment, Tan Ao Su announced the Suburban Experimental Room has sent news. The experimental items of Professors Tang and Anthony have new progress. They want to invite you to visit first. Today is really a continuous good thing. Yes, but Mr. doesn't need to change clothes, right? After all, going to the experimental room doesn't need it either. They are all the same, understand? Mr. Lee looked at two products that looked like watches. What is this? This is my energy balance bracelet research. Energy balance bracelet? How does it work? Come here, come here. When I was young, I discovered that normal adults, even if they use all their strength, can only activate 33% of the body's muscle fibers, while professional athletes can reach 42%. Isn't it meaningful? Mr. Lee also knows about this issue. In fact, it is a phenomenon of decline in the process of transmitting muscle control signals due to brain commands, so it leads to the body's muscles not being able to receive full activity commands. It turns out that you just read this book last night. Old Squirrel was surprised when he heard that. Mr. Lee said very accurately, "You are also proficient in this field, right?" The Old Squirrel continued. So we researched this bracelet, which uses the principle of low-frequency electrical signals, simulates operations based on neural principles, can stimulate the body's muscle fibers in a resting state, thereby increasing the strength of normal people, endurance, speed, and flexibility. It can be said that it is humanity's first step towards evolving into a superhuman. Mr. Lee still didn't believe it based on this little toy, right? Do you want to try, sir? I especially prepared for that day. Our Miss Tam immediately grabbed me and put on the energy bracelet. She felt like a strong current flowing through her body. She said and took a step forward and punched a roll into a sandbag which was split in half and sand started falling down. She was stunned for 5 seconds, then turned back and looked at this glass. "Sir, I don't need compensation, right?" Mr. Lee was amazed while the Old Squirrel laughed mischievously. Normal people have a maximum muscle fiber ratio ranging from 10% to 15%. Looking at the results of the sandbag, it seems this lady has quite a talent there. I have an ambitious idea here. Mr. Lee immediately realized the Old Squirrel's mischievous intention. "Oh, that's too much. Rest assured it will be fine. What about Miss Taneo Suha? Why is it like this that we can't get there?" It turns out the Old Squirrel made a solo deal between assistant Tam Tam and security guard Bang Hao. They both looked at each other in confusion. She turned back and asked for help from Mr. Lee. "Sir, just kidding, right? This guy can easily break someone's wrist." And Mr. Lee adds fuel to the fire. Hao's temperament is very good. He doesn't need to be merciful at all, right? Bang Hao doesn't know how to handle it. Into the observation room, the Old Squirrel said, "I have started recording data. You can start now." In the arena, Taneo Su was scared and said, "Avoid me here," after saying that the girl took off her high heels and ran straight to Bang Hao. As for her attacks, Bang Hao dodged them all without even exerting any effort. The Old Squirrel watched with his mouth agape. How can it be? Without the bracelet, how can it be like this? Bang Hao clenched his fist and threw a very fast punch at the girl's face. Taneo Su was scared and closed her eyes. Luckily Mr. Lee asked to stop, otherwise her jade face would have been like a sandbag. Taneo Su opened her eyes and saw a fist in front of her face. She quickly jumped back. The 2 staff members watching inside were wide-eyed and open-mouthed. "Professor, this person just punched, breaking our previous limit data." "What?" the Old Squirrel exclaimed. Then he ran out to examine Bang Hao's body while the assistant girl cried like a river. "Mommy, he hit me." "This young man, how can your body in this state reach this level? In the future please come here often." Mr. Lee started to smirk. Of course the bracelet can upgrade from ordinary people to a superhuman level, but Bang Hao is someone who has been training year-round under time acceleration. On the contrary, he can rely on physical condition and experience to win. If these 2 things are combined, what will happen to the Old Squirrel? Looking at Bang Hao full of energy while praising him. And Bang Hao praised his watch as being very good. Could it be equipped for all security personnel? At this moment Anthony just arrived and said, "His project burns money like that. How can it be equipped for all employees?" "Right, he was still here last night mocking that the cost of this bracelet needs tens of millions." "Shut up, don't bother with my business, I will arrange it myself." The cunning old man mixed rice wine into water. You see, this is the difference between us two. My projects can bring money trees to the club's continuous resources. Do you hear me, old squirrel? You have to have a good relationship with Professor Anthony, okay? Then they went on a tour. The superconducting battery project has more prospects than new hemostatic material. This is a large project with a production value of tens of billions. Previously I discovered that two parallel carbon layers stacked at an exquisite angle of about 1 divided by 1 can produce superconducting effects. If this technical project can be expanded, then it can achieve power stations. Small ones can achieve generators, all of which can save 2/3 of electricity. Look, sir, although it is still in its early stages, I have broken through the most difficult problems. What remains is a bright future. Mr. Lee also pretended to understand and said, "Indeed, this is a money tree. Then please allow exclusive global construction of superconductors which may be based on group development aspects. I will give you the greatest convenience. In addition, Miss, do contact the government a bit. It's good not coming to exchange a bit, how to get resources right." Then Mr. Lee was on his way to meet old Butler and Lai Van. Unexpectedly their speed was still very fast. It seems that the attraction of superconducting batteries is still very large. Everyone seems a little impatient already. "Miss, do please bother my sister for me. I am very honored to cooperate with the high-level experimental room, waiting for Professor Anthony to give me a more detailed plan for her to carry out the procedure." Then, "Yes, sir." When they finished talking, Bang Hao spoke up. "Sir, it seems that this bid plan is going very smoothly, indeed. Based on the normal temperature of superconducting technology, we can even escape outsiders for at least 30 years. Bang Hao happily said, "It's not in vain that we brothers came to the organization base to make a noise. It's really infuriating. Those guys couldn't have guessed what they risked their lives to keep. It's just the smallest link in our great goal." As for the #1 Miniature World Research Institute, it is located on a small private island of Truong Kien. The purpose of my visit today is to help them carry out the experimental area of the #1 world. Of course, some tricks are needed. Butler, our aide, greeted, "Sir. Today has finally come. The old Butler has prepared everything, and has been arranged early. We can't wait any longer. We have simulated according to the Earth. It is simple gene coding, and also adjusted the large molecular biology of the original life." "Very good. Let me see your masterpiece." Then, Mr. Lee and they entered the experimental building, surrounded by seawater. Mr. Lee asked, "Is it seawater?" "Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it? This 300 square meters room is just a small experimental site where we conduct observations. We simulate the origin of life, replicating the composition of the Earth's ocean. We use the world's most advanced equipment to monitor all aspects of seawater. Each small technical team works together, striving to accurately recreate the external geology of the Hadean Aeon. They aim to return to the state of Earth 4 billion years ago. Volcanoes continuously spewed out steam, which constantly entered the primitive atmosphere. When the temperature dropped below the boiling point of water, a miraculous landscape of sea and sky appeared. This heavy rain lasted for a long time, with the temperature of the rainwater reaching 300 degrees Celsius. It was truly a living hell. Floodwaters rushed into depressions, forming a vast oceanic basin, and thus the primitive ocean was formed. We simulate the origin of life, with the composition of Earth's seawater being replicated. The light source is located at the top of our facility, a device that emits energy similar to solar energy, simulating Earth's day and night cycle. It is truly a magnificent work of art. Now, please unlock the first step of this world's evolutionary process." Mr. Lee shouted enthusiastically and then descended into the room. "Everyone else stands up there and watches," Lai asked the old servant. "Have you ever seen such a big battle before?" "It's my first time seeing it." Mr. Lee uses his power to accelerate time by 10,000 times. He controls the waves with his hand, creating swirling waves. The two old men hugged each other and screamed in terror. The evolution of seawater has begun. Don't cover my eyes, you fool, it's too intense. It seems that the evolution of the primitive ocean is also a vast and powerful history. Fortunately, I have only consumed about 3 times my own time so far. If it were before, I'm afraid I would have been shattered immediately. No, I'm afraid not even a fragment would be left behind. It seems that after upgrading to 10,000 times faster, my time consumption rate has also correspondingly decreased. Success. We can start the first step now. Those two old men have been hugging each other in fear since earlier. At this point, those two old men have understood what's going on. I immediately introduced large molecules into the ocean. The transportation route was reconnected and then many blue molecules flew out. Now let us witness this historic moment together. This is what primitive life looks like. It's so beautiful. From the basic gene group in Earth's organisms, we extract and transfer these into the molecules. We then carry out penetration through the miniaturized ocean, which can restore the evolutionary process of organisms on a large scale. The life reaction speed of these macromolecules is 10 times that of ordinary macromolecules. At the same time, it inherits the gene sequence of the most basic global organisms in the evolutionary path of the basic beginning, which will save time in the long evolutionary process. However, after waiting, the evolution of perceptual cells is complete. The initial evolutionary experiment can be considered completed. Mr. Lee pretends to understand chemistry. He never imagined that the process of creating life could be so complicated. Now, with the enhancement of time speed to 10,000 times per day in this miniaturized ocean, it is equivalent to 4.32 seconds in the real world. So what does it mean after a month? The time flow is over 8,000 years, not just 2 or 3 months, or even a year. Later, there will be a magnificent sight here. Time is still wonderful. This is a new world created by myself. I'm really looking forward to that day. The sun has risen high and shines into the room, but our Mr. Lee is still sleeping and hasn't woken up. The alarm clock rings throughout the room, then he wakes up and realizes he overslept again. He forgot to set a slow time last night. The plan to build the #1 miniature world has been going on for months since it started. He really didn't expect to get to this step recently. Everyone has been like they're on chicken blood rush. All aspects of the project progress have exceeded my calculations, faster than expected. But I, as the leader of the club, am lazy like this. Mr. Lee went to the living room and met old Vin. Sorry, I'm late. I haven't seen you for a long time, Your Highness. Here again bothering you, sir. Mr. Lee's new task was given to him. The prototype of the underground capital experimental room has begun forming a template. Future underground capital will definitely be very majestic with 48 main towers supporting the entire underground city that can accommodate tens of thousands of people. At the underground base, hearing that Vin thought so, Your Highness received upgrade points for Generation 10 membership contributed everything thanks to my Vin family. Both sides benefit. Your Highness, you work fast. Indeed, as reward for new tasks you will become level 1 member of my club. Longevity has reached 5,000 points. Congratulations. Do you want to exchange rewards now? It could be 1 year of youth. The old man is delighted to finally see this person's magic. What does it taste like? Then he joyfully said, I am willing to exchange. But at this moment, the secretary Tan Ao Su interrupted. Sorry to interrupt, suddenly interrupted the words of you gentlemen, it is really impolite. But sir, you once said that the affairs of the #1 world are the top priority. Old man Vin seems to know nothing about the new world, so he is very surprised. What is this #1 world again? What great things is sir doing? My Vin family is seeing for the first time that membership level information is not enough. It seems that my path is still very long. At this time there was a voice from Butler RA from outside. Little damn, why are you young and slower than me? Then he turned to Mr. Lee and said, I'm here, I want to show you something wonderful. Looking at his active appearance, Old Man Vin was even more puzzled. I don't know if these two have known each other or are close friends. They look at each other from beginning to end, looking at the two old men's brains like a monk meeting a monk. So at this time, Mr. Lee spoke. Old butler, it's okay, there must be results already, right? Let us broaden our horizons. After years of time, I finally got it. The years in the ocean have a high concentration of nutrients, it's really hard. 4,113 years, for our research objects, are 4,113 years. The old butler opened the box and smoke billowed out. He pulled out some kind of bottle and Old Man Vin thought to himself that this was not something we could see or probe. But Sir didn't seem to drive us out. What was he thinking? I can't guess. The old butler held up something and said, in fact, we started experimenting 4 months and 12 days ago. Among tens of thousands of macromolecules, finally, the first species appeared as primitive cells without nuclear membranes. Material movement concentrated in low electron density areas without clear boundaries. DNA as circular molecules exposed. This type of nucleated cell is increasing, easily captured, and observed through our detection. Some of the disease reactions of these macromolecules have a growth rate 10 times faster, which means we have succeeded. Mr. Lee was very happy when he heard that the direction of evolution of life in the number 1 world was correct, absolutely correct. Just by using a high magnification microscope, we can observe and evaluate the most primitive life from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Next, please come to Country X to promote their reproduction and evolution. The Emperor was surprised by Country X. Does Country X also have this kind of experimental room? Mr. Lee felt that he was really busy and didn't have a moment's rest. The Emperor asked in surprise, "What is Country X, sir?" Mr. Lee replied, "Don't be so surprised, Your Highness, I just arranged a small item there to simulate the process of biological evolution to create the world." The old man heard this and was even more puzzled. Creating the world? A small item? I have to admit, Mr. Lee is the most surprising person I have ever met. Your Highness laughed. Then Old Man Vin, seeing the Emperor and Mr. Lee talking happily, felt jealous. He thought to himself, Mr. Lee can casually say that building the world is a small plan, this is something only God can say. Then, he was also curious about Country X. Unexpectedly, the old man in the camp had come this far all of a sudden, annoying. Clearly being overtaken, he thought to himself. Then, he took the initiative to speak. "Sir, I don't know if we want to contribute a part to your project. Which activity should we contribute to? In fact, I kept you two here for this reason. This is phase 2 of the plan. Construction of underground base. Vin, he didn't understand. Please explain, sir. Clearly, this is just the first effort. Scientists helped me carry out a small idea of the system. Then there are second and third steps when tens of thousands of talents will gather in one place, a magnificent scene never seen before, so location is the next important consideration. Your Highness, next around new issues of building the experimental environment of the underground base thanks to you, then rest assured, sir. I guarantee it will be better than the initial stage, right, Sir Vin family? We are always ready to help you. Ah, I almost forgot you still haven't exchanged 1 year of life, Your Highness. He thought in his head, it's too good I don't have the courage to ask, though he forgot. Vin, an old man, approached and shook hands with Mr. Lee and said, so let's seize time and go to Country T. Sorry for bothering you. Mr. Lee laughed again. Mr. Lee really doesn't get to rest outside. There are people who buy time and come back unexpectedly. They come back so quickly, sir. Recently work is too much. Please wait a moment. Mr. Mock didn't forget to tease Taneo Su, you took office quite quickly. Do you have enough salary? How about it? Do you want to switch to our side? It's very beneficial. Taneo Su humbly replied, A small role like me has no right to interfere with the central project. My job is simply to help Sir handle trivial matters, so I always have to ensure my best state. If one day due to my negligence leads to you guys making a wasted trip, it would be more disadvantageous. The man, seeing this, turned to tease Tamak and was mercilessly retorted. Tamak also had her day today. At this time, the Vin family came out, and Taneo Su ran over to greet them. Mr. Vin had a hard day today, there was no doubt about it. In the future, if the gentleman has any instructions, please still bother the secretary to notify me. Seeing the familiar Vin family, two people buying and selling time were talking to each other. This old man seems familiar. I think I've seen him on TV. What's his name? Well, it's not strange for someone to interact with the gentleman. After all, what's his name? Upon reaching the club door, the person accompanying Mr. Vin spoke up. Uncle, you seem to have something on your mind today? Earlier in the corridor, there were several people with the same expression. The gentleman mentioned a new world that seems to be rapidly advancing. Has the Kong family responded yet? Mr. Kong has responded to your invitation. The plane will arrive tomorrow afternoon. That's great. We can't fall too far behind. Uncle Ha, have you decided to nominate the Tong family for the club? The representative of the Tong family is in banking, and their influence in the global banking sector is particularly large. Working with them to develop underground bases will surely meet the gentleman's requirements ahead of schedule. On Mr. Lee's side, he was talking with a group of time buyers, the four of them lined up silently as usual. Mr. Lee spoke up, the effect is still as before. I always trust businessmen's work ability equally. On the contrary, it's Tamak. She is still suitable for her new identity as a businesswoman. I learn everything very quickly, sir. Very good. You're worthy of being recommended by Bang Hao. Let me check a little bit then. True Dai Hoa bought 2,603 years, Van Hai bought 2,506 years, Ho Bao Tian bought 199 years. It seems that this man was rewarded by Bang Hao with two hands, so that's why Mr. Lee was surprised when he looked at Tamak's results. What? Bought 12,527 years? What the fuck? 10,000 years. You're really worth your money. The three old men pretended to be deaf and blind in various ways when they heard this. Tamak was proud of her achievements and asked him, "Are you satisfied? I have to admit, you really scared me. I really changed my view of you. Who would have thought that a lone woman like you could do this much? My impression of you has completely changed. But I'm very curious about one thing. The country I come from is densely populated, and the poverty rate is as high as 80%. Hearing the girl say that, the three old men whispered to each other, "This girl is really cunning. If you lose, you have to accept it." In a country where women's status is extremely low, there are also women like them, so I can easily gain their trust, right? So it turns out that it's hitting where it hurts, while receiving gratitude from them, one by one. They all become regular customers. But the money I spend on this trip is a bit large. If the gentleman feels uncomfortable, I will be lighter next time. Bang Hao said a little bit is not wrong. She really is a sharp-tongued person. Having said that, let me remind you again, I'm not short of money here. What I lack is time. Couldn't be clearer, right, gentlemen? You don't need to worry about money at all. Please spend my money. So the next step is just to give me your results. Mr. Lee started to suck their lifespan again. The number of years bought jumped up in front of him, and he glowed all around. His lifespan increased rapidly. Mr. Lee stepped into another space. He saw a glowing figure appearing and walking towards him. Mr. Lee looked at that person and wondered who it was. After a while, he saw that the glowing body was himself. It seemed to be copying everything from face, eyes, nose, mouth, from head to toe. But each person's facial expression was different. Regarding the control of the rules, the remaining lifespan reached 100,000 years. Then Mr. Lee reached out and touched the copy, and the light was dazzling. After a while, Mr. Lee returned to reality. He slowly opened his eyes and saw that his remaining lifespan was 110,134 years. Mr. Lee thought to himself that he had indeed seen traces of this vague rule. It seems to transcend the world in front of him. But he can be sure that his perception is accurate. He seems to possess the power of the time rule contract department. If they and I are the same, becoming a time merchant, not only can they take their time, but they can also make them gain lifespan. That means I give the trustee the right to sell 1 year of life. Although there is no power to increase the speed of time, it is also considered a time merchant. And this contract was completely set by me with rules about time. Does this mean that I have gone from being a time executor to starting to become a time controller? This is a great help for the grand plan to unlock the new world. But even if it's unlocked, I still have a problem to solve, which is caused by humans. At this time, Tan Ao Su stepped in. Sir, Mr. Bang Hao is ready. We set off. Mr. Lee stepped outside. Outside, Bang Hao was waiting. He asked Bang Hao, where are the old men? Haven't they arrived yet? Bang Hao replied, the old men, their morning flight has already departed before us. Didn't they say they would go together? This is not right of them. It seems that the old men are eager. Forget it, let's not waste time anymore. Let's go. Yes, sir. Behind Mr. Lee's car, there was another car following. They talked to each other. This is the mansion of the person, very famous, right? It seems that compared to ordinary rich people, it's no different, Mr. Dam. I don't object to you probing this person strongly, but before now I told you some things. You should take it seriously and do it well. There was a sound from the boss's walkie-talkie. The target had entered range. Do we really need to take action? The two of them looked at each other for a while and said, of course we need to. The weak compromise methods before were ruined by you guys. The person next to him saw this and said, now you are the boss, but as your friend, I remind you again. Although they always stand on the side of peace and equality, even handing over a large number of scientific copyrights to request cooperation. But do you really think they are so easy? The photos locked in your drawer, who made them? You know better than anyone this dangerous person. If I can't domesticate it, then my coming here this time has no meaning at all, okay? I say I can't get through you. At this time on Mr. Lee's side, time automatically accelerated. Strangely, where is the problem? After thinking for a while, Mr. Lee understood that the feeling of his remaining lifespan now appeared uncertain factors, so that's it. From now on, when his life is threatened, time will automatically accelerate. Mr. Lee looked back and saw a car following him. It seems that someone wants to assassinate him again. Are they all so wise? I want to see. Then Mr. Lee got out of the car and walked towards their car to see what they looked like. Ah, so it's this person. I remember he is in charge of the mysterious department, and the person next to him seems to be a new person in charge here. I understand now. If that's the case, then I will return to normal again this time. They continued their conversation. This dangerous person, if I can't domesticate it, then my coming here this time has no meaning at all, okay? I say I can't get through you. At this point he turned back and looked at him, startled when he saw Mr. Lee sitting in the back seat. Mr. Lee greeted the two of them. Good evening. It's clearly morning, but you're saying good evening. The car abruptly stopped by the road. At this point, both of them turned around to look. Mr. Lee continued to say, I didn't expect you two to visit me today. I'm a bit caught off guard, or rather, I have mixed feelings. When did you get here? The other person pulled out his gun and pointed it at him. Sir, your magic trick isn't bad. The old man was looking for you. Mr. Lee coolly said, I just came to say hello. Your actions seem a bit unreasonable. Then he found his gun missing. Mr. Lee continued, if you could work peacefully like your friend, I wouldn't have come to see you specifically. Didn't we reach an agreement early on? Your current behavior makes me a bit uncomfortable, Mr. Lee said as he pointed the gun at them. No wonder Sun Mu failed last time, that's why I identified you as a potential threat. Speaking of threats, let's see what's in the town we're about to reach. Whether it's an uncle pretending to buy medicine, or someone dressed like a sanitation worker, or a sniper hiding on the roof. Hearing Mr. Lee say that, the two of them broke out in a cold sweat. Has he been exposed? When did he know? You have a conciliatory attitude saying so. We hope Sir understands that we are also helpless. You know what sets us apart, don't you? That is, we can't stand being threatened by others. After saying that, Mr. Lee raised his gun. The two of them were scared and sweating like rain. The gunshot sounded, but both of them were still alive. They covered their faces with their hands in fear, and when they opened their eyes they found something in their palms. It was a smoking copper bullet, still hot, not giving them time to understand what happened. Then Mr. Lee got out of the car and turned back to say, the bullet just fired is still hot, that's my greeting gift for you. I know you're not happy about it, but I'm willing to admit that you're not wrong. I am indeed a threat. Then he put the gun back on the hood of the car and didn't forget to threaten if there was a next time. I don't mind showing you my skills. What would it be like for someone to experience rejuvenation and end their life in less than a second? Goodbye for now. Mr. Lee turned around and left. Our Mr. Hao was dumbfounded in front of him, not understanding anything because this happened too fast. Looking at Mr. Lee's figure in front of him, he ordered all his people who were lurking to retreat. What kind of person is this guy? In a blink of an eye, what could he possibly do before we meet him? He had arrived at our ambush location and probed our actions. It really only takes time for a blink of an eye. The time acceleration is too terrifying, said the person next to him. Exactly speaking, it's 0.06 seconds. Luckily nothing unexpected happened. The other one couldn't believe what he heard. Do I need to ask again? 0.06 seconds. Based on the calculated data about him, that's his usual acceleration magnification in most cases, like this time. He's clearly faster than the previous calculation. What does this mean? Can you now obediently follow my suggestion? First of all, drive. After all, we are not allowed to stop on the highway in Country X. Please note that the miniaturized SA experiment officially opens at 9 a.m. All departments, please prepare well. The world's #1 temperature has entered the testing phase, the world's #1 climate has entered the testing phase, and the world's #1 light source has completed the inspection. When Mr. Lee arrived, everyone was whispering. The boss is here. Is that our boss? He's too young, beyond my expectations. Stop talking nonsense. Mr. Lee looked at the screen and said, this is the most primitive shape of the Earth. How about us? The old man answered correctly. The entire experimental room in Capital X has thousands of researchers who have returned to a precise time based on existing archaeological materials, existed in the old state of the continent and simulated the environment at that time. And in the next part, we will test the impact on biological evolution. The old man on this side spoke, the departments are ready. The primitive creatures are starting to debut, sir. Please come to the time room of the first miniaturized world to start world operations. Okay, I understand, the old man continued, but there's one more thing. Although bacteria are also an important part of the world, you also know that everything in the miniaturized world goes through a strict proportion calculation process. It can be said that the intrusion of any small factor into the real world in an accelerated time environment can turn into a state we cannot determine. So your current outfit may not be suitable. So put on protective clothing? Okay, I'm ready. You can start now, sir. The Sir's capsule in front of him is connected to a miniaturized ocean underground with a volume of 420 cubic meters. It is several times larger than the domestic version. For convenient operation, he only needs to apply time acceleration on the Pesci disk. Then, the entire ocean of the miniaturized world will also receive similar acceleration. About time acceleration, there is no target volume limit. No problem, old man, no, he said, the choice has been made and confirmed by Sir, right? I didn't ask, does he know how expensive this device is? He is indeed a genius. Seeing them about to argue again, Mr. Lee spoke up to mediate. Two have given results, he doesn't need to care about this little thing. After all, it's not good to drag on like this. Primitive creatures start to debut. Start counting down 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 time acceleration 100,000 times. The halo shines brightly and lightning shoots everywhere. Those blue spots begin to gather together and grow bigger. Then those blue crystals gradually form the first kind of plant. Everyone is very excited and happy. Quick, look, there's a reaction, organic life has appeared. Old Tang saw this and thought to himself, oh my, oxygen. Start dividing a large amount of oxygen, then the Ediacaran biota appears. The reaction of life is truly miraculous. Evolution speed is 100,000 times faster, it seems like watching a documentary. Mr. Lee has truly created a new world. Now in the simulation experiment, about to destroy the Ediacaran creatures, it's time for this new species to appear. These creatures are the ancestors of current creatures. At that time, the Earth was only in the ocean, new creatures were full of vitality, and the continent was a wasteland, dominating the ocean. Its powerful arthropods, such as trilobites and strange shrimp, and the ancestor of humans was just a small fish, insignificant. The first plants on land, they are improving the environment of the land to provide conditions for the evolution of later terrestrial creatures. Sir, should we proceed to the next stage? Humans participate in evolution? Humans participate in evolution? In the next 2 hours, lower the temperature of the entire miniaturized world by 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Wait a minute, 5 to 10 degrees of the real world, right? If placed in the miniaturized world, then it's not wrong. What's called human participation is that we will simulate, according to the first experiment, destroy all creatures under human intervention. Most creatures in the miniaturized world are extinct, accurately called extinction of ancient life. In miniaturized world number 1, you can stay to enjoy this cold extinction or move on to the next stage. We wait for your directive. Directly start the next stage. Restart the temperature control system, restore samples, restore the ecosystem of world number 1, life samples have been restored. Next we are about to welcome the first terrestrial vertebrates, beautiful colorful flowers full of vitality, dense forests, majestic green mountains and trees. Fish began to actively attack land, evolved into amphibians because they couldn't completely live without water, then turned into reptiles that could live on land, and the first owners in the forest were arthropods. A long-lasting battle took place afterwards. A new ecological chain began to form, once again human intervention after many volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. The miniaturized world once again goes through mass extinction. 90% of marine creatures and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates are extinct, but each extinction will bring new life to the world. The reptile lord of the new world is born, the dinosaur is hunting, something is hiding its head out, it must be a squirrel. Old Tang seems surprised at that creature. It's a beast, a real beast. It can be said that it is the ancestor of mammals. Old How, it's time, the asteroid collision preparation is complete. Old Tang directs to monitor that real beast. You must protect them well, Old Tang. We have simulated mass extinction, so why do we need to intervene? It's random. Mr. Lee's answer also horrifies everyone because of his understanding of the randomness of creatures to survive in this mass extinction event. Regardless, we don't see proliferation to facilitate the birth of creatures, humans that we want. We need to ensure history operates on the original trajectory, like rebuilding a movie to achieve great results. Therefore, any event related to randomness needs to be eliminated. And I think of something interesting here. I wonder if in the distant history of the Earth, there was such observation and research by God above. Our birth, is it also the result of intervention? Why are so many asteroids falling into the miniaturized world? The beast felt danger, so it tried to run when the explosion happened. It was protected from extinction. Pay attention to keep the three-horned mouse life sample, and many other marsupials are extinct. Some birds survived. Now the extinction level has reached 70%, quickly compared with existing archaeological data. I see it's approximate. If not, then all will die. As Mr. Lee stopped Old Howe, what are you standing there for? Now we can't stop yet, the extinction level must reach over 80%, that's the order to continue for mass extinction. Time flies by, a monkey has appeared in this miniaturized world. It was scared by their radar observation and hurriedly climbed up a tree to hide. When it got close, it was scared and fainted. When it woke up, it found itself lying in someone's hand. Mr. Lee and several elders looked down at this tiny thing. It looked so cute, so Mr. Lee's plan was to create such tiny life forms. They started experimenting with it. The difference in size between this life sample and the normal sample is too large. Even with the world's leading medical equipment, they immediately saw the difficulty of this surgery in front of their eyes. If Old Tang also failed like this, no one else on this planet could complete it. Fortunately, the result brought about through Old Tang's modification and scientists was not bad. The tree monkey combines the genes of primitive humans and monkeys to coexist, has intelligence to survive and develop in a new era, and must have logical thinking. Along with that is the improvement of the tribe's living standards. A large number of tree monkeys began on the path of evolution, and the tree monkey species chosen by Mr. Lee can be said to be the ancestor of all humans in the miniaturized world, number one, and named Hmong people. Along with the experiment, intervention and continuous evolution of primitive tree monkeys, the community gradually developed into two branches. Even full human figures can be seen in this world. Numerous ancient creatures are competing for reproduction. They are hunting, then the radar appears, scaring them. Mr. Lee's surveillance camera scares them, considering me owing them a feast. Old Tang teases Old Howe again. Is it like the first time you saw time acceleration? I'm a lot calmer than you. All these things are beautiful. It's lucky to witness firsthand. They are really worth it. Mr. Lee retracts his watch. Later they need to develop on their own. I'm very curious that these lives will go to the same level as us. Hope, don't disappoint me. According to the rotation, the acceleration of time of the miniaturized world, primitive humans in the miniaturized world continue to evolve. Under the observation of those considered God. Although they have started learning how to use hunting tools, in front of the Lord of the Green Forest, they are still as small as before. But they have a weapon of destruction that all other species never have, that is intelligence. Thanks to using their intelligence, primitive humans have used traps, making the Lord of the Green Forest just delicious grilled meat. They quickly became kings in the natural world, continuing to step strongly towards civilization. Individual populations appear in the form of tribes. Humans begin to learn to use language communication, and begin to explore the outside world. Along with the birth and development of civilization, agriculture is considered a blessing from above and also became the greatest and most sacred legend of primitive people. Thanks to seeds, the civilization of miniaturized humans has taken another step forward. The plan to create a new world has basically succeeded. Everyone is happy. The world I built with my own hands can mean more than genetic research now, sir. Just take advantage of this good situation now. We continue to push it one more step further.